When you are flamboyant and you have a good English and you want to connect with people, the first time it's fine when you are connecting with customers, but then the next journey is all about understanding the problem and helping them to fix that. And that is where you don't have to show, I would say, in a visible manner, but you have to work with them, uh, collaborate with them, and then ensure that you are able to solve their problem. And for that, I don't think you need to be a very loud person. Generally, people will come to you and then they start telling you that okay, they did Docker, they did Kubernetes, they did OpenShift, everything. But generally, they will not be able to tell what is the SDLC, what happens when I check in a code, what, for example, if there is a SonarQube they are using, how it is configured. So a simple question: what is the base image size? People may not really. People think that DevOps is CI/CD. That is not the case. DevOps is everything, maybe on top of the hardware or OS. Whatever softwares you are installing, you need to upgrade, you need to patch the networking, the firewalls, the infrastructure, everything comes under DevOps. It's not only building a CI/CD pipeline. At the end of the day, the pipeline and the applications which are productionized, you need to observe, you need to monitor them. You need to ensure that before a problem occurs, are you able to self-heal and fix those? Analyzing the logs and bringing the observability quotient, all these come under DevOps. It was one of the greatest consulting experience, I would say, where we could deliver to the expectations.
In fact, I'll see if I can find that picture of the wall. We can abstract it and I'll see if I can put it here. Hello, Ravi. Welcome to this podcast. And I must say, this special episode is extremely close to my heart because we have worked together for 6 years in an organization at Zensar, and we have a relationship which lasts much beyond that, and both of us have worked very hard on that. And you are one of the people who I believe are one of the smartest DevOps consulting minds out there. So thank you for taking out time to do this special podcast, and I'm sure anybody who's listening through this will gain a lot of perspective, not just about how to extrapolate their DevOps career, whether they are starting off, whether they are just getting into consulting, or they've been doing consulting for a number of years, but people will also get a perspective about how to run their lives. So Ravi, thank you for joining in and welcome.
Hey, thanks, Savinder. Thanks very much.
All right, so let's get started. So basic question first, Ravi. What the heck does a DevOps consultant really do? If you can describe that like you would describe it to your grandmother.
Okay. So, a DevOps consultant wears many hats, I would say. It is to provide solutions for different RFPs, RFIs, and engage with customers, listen to their problems, and provide a quick solution, or maybe go to your drawing board, think through, and get back to him, or go on site, do an assessment, and provide a roadmap for the implementation, or sit at your desk and resolve a problem the system may have, or even lead a team and do the implementation. So it is, I think, it brings all those facets where a technology person would go ahead and play a role of an individual contributor or a consultant, or then a people manager, a lead, who can then drive solutions and drive people to deliver the business value. I think that is what a DevOps consultant does.
Perfect. So let's give people a sense of real DevOps consulting assignment, right? Let's say hypothetically you go into a customer situation and you're doing a classic DevOps consulting for a couple of weeks, right? What would be typically the boundary of a DevOps consultant? Does it start and stop with the SDLC? And what kind of roles would you typically talk to? And would you even go and talk to, let's say, the QA guy, the release manager, even the infrastructure folks? So tell us what personas you would typically talk to in a consulting assignment, so that it gives the width of what we are talking about.
Yeah, very interesting question, Savinder. So basically, DevOps is horizontal if you look at it, and it needs to uh, understand the overall SDLC. But I would say it is not only the technical challenge or the technical folks, I would say, because ultimately you want to invest money and do DevOps to get some ROI for the business. So you also have to ensure that you are talking to the decision makers. It could be C-level people or head of IT or whoever, to understand why they want to do DevOps or what their problems are. And then when you go back and do the assessment and you talk to the people from right from delivery and project managers to test leads, developers, architects, infrastructure guys, the support people, when you bring all that information together and you want to now say, okay, these are the 10 problems their systems have, they lack these kind of automations in place, the platform may not be the right platform for them, but you have to align all these to the goal the business is looking forward to. It's not just doing automation just for fancy stuff. It has to bring some value, and that is where I think it cuts across the SDLC. You also go to the decision makers and talk to them, and then finally create a roadmap, and then do the hypothesis saying that, okay, let us do this piece first, which will bring more value, and then we proceed with that. So I think everybody in the IT, all the key roles in your IT would be, I think, the customers whom you would like to talk to.
Sure. That sounds like a very broad role, right? And I think that is what it is.
Yes.
Right? And if you do it long enough, you get a pretty solid understanding of who's doing what pretty much in the entire organization. You start knowing about the DNA of the organization.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
So tell me this, Ravi, you've been doing this consulting for a while now, and I know that you've done it across UK, Europe, US, South Africa. I've been personally involved in multiple engagement across these geographies. So I want to go a little bit philosophical now with you, right? So how has DevOps consulting changed you as a person?
Okay. So it has changed me personally. It has brought many changes to my personality. So I am more of a listener now. I empathize with people. So it's not only the customer, but it is everybody in this ecosystem. I try to understand their problems. I empathize with them. I not only empathize with them, but I also try to see how I can help them. So I have brought in that compassion. I'm compassionate to understand their problems and look for solutions, and how and where I can help and make their life better, and overall I can help the people in the ecosystem. I think that is something which had changed me personally, because earlier I used to wear a hat of a delivery manager, a technical project manager. It was a limited role to that project and those people, but now I am talking to everybody on the ecosystem, right from the project manager to development to test to architecture to the operations people to the networking guys, the infrastructure people, and at times to the CIO, etc. So it has brought that calmness in me, like to listen to people and, okay, be compassionate and tell them, okay, I'm there to help you. I think that is a big change, I would say.
Yeah, well put. And I can testify to that calmness part that you're talking to. So, whenever people hear about a consultant, right, right? And when they say, our next call will be with a DevOps consultant, the average perception is a flashy guy, a very flamboyant person, who can speak fluent English and who can, blabber some technology shit. That's the general perception of a consultant, right? Who can get away with any bullshit, right? Now, you and me, we can play those roles, but that's not our core personality. Right? So what I want you to explain to people is that while those are the consultants that get published in the Wall Street and the movies, in real life, can you be a mellow, calm person who's not the loudest in a room, but yet be effective as a consultant, maybe even more than them? Is that possible even?
Looking at my journey, I think that is possible because my personality. I'm not a loud person. I speak very minimal if required.
Mhm.
I think when you are flamboyant and you have good English and you want to connect with people, the first time it's fine when you are connecting with customers, but then the next journey is all about understanding the problem and helping them to fix that. And that is where you don't have to show, I would say, in a visible manner, but you have to work with them, collaborate with them, and then ensure that you are able to solve their problem. And for that, I don't think you need to be a very loud person or personality to that matter.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. So bullshit can only take you so much. Right? After that, it is real content and real experience, and it doesn't matter what your style is, as long as what you're speaking is based on truth and real value. I think it connects with people. Yeah, I agree with you. So, Ravi, in your about 20 odd years of experience, you've played various roles, right? You've been a people's manager, you've of course been a consultant, you've been an individual contributor, you've managed delivery teams across continents, right? And each of these roles has their own nuances, has their own advantages, disadvantages, requirements. So my question is, which of these roles did you enjoy the most and why?
If you look at the overall, the DevOps consulting role, I think as we spoke, the consultant plays different roles of an individual contributor, a real consultant who is doing an assessment, or in the background creating solutions and frameworks and reference architectures, or leading a team. Now you cannot separate out these different roles or personalities from each other, because when you say you are a DevOps consultant, eventually you have to play these roles at one or the other time. So basically, it is the demand of the role. One fine day, your boss may ask you to fly to some XYZ continent, like we flew to South Africa and spent 5 days doing the assessment. Now that is a pure consulting role, I would say, but that is just a week or 2 weeks or a month in a year. The rest of the time you would be either bringing in the thought leadership to create some artifacts which will eventually be reused and used for other projects, or you are leading team to deliver some solutions. It needs your technical skills, your personality, your people management skills, everything, and working and collaborating with your team as well as the customer team to deliver solutions. And at times, if required, you need to look at the specific problems and do it yourself, because there might be situations where you don't have anybody to look up to, and then you sit it, use your technical skills and deliver it. So I think it's a mix of a role, and overall that is how it is.
Sure. So you touched upon that South Africa experience. Yeah, I want you to talk a little bit about that. What was it that we did together, and why is that special? Because we have had this for a couple of years. So why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. So I remember I joined Zensar in 2016, and in 2017 we had a couple of calls with the customer. He was a very demanding customer, I would say, and he had a typical problem. While they had so many latest and greatest tools and technologies which were sitting there, uh, he was not able to deliver to the business expectations when he was head of IT, and he was struggling. And there were many releases for different countries were halted, and the progress was not that great. And so he wanted to understand why it's not working. And then you, me, and one of our other colleague, we flew in there and we spent 5 days. I think there was a big conference room, and it had a long wall, I would say, and he told us, okay, you can use this wall. Basically, you asked them, can we use this?
Yeah.
During the discussion on day one, and then he said, yeah, go ahead. And we used that wall as our whiteboard for next 5 days, and we did a wonderful consulting, and whatever we had promised, I think we delivered on time. So the consulting was part of it. Then our third colleague stayed back, and then he delivered what we promised.
Yes.
And eventually we did the job. So it was fantastic, Savinder.
Yeah.
It was one of the greatest consulting experience, I would say, where we could deliver to the expectations.
Correct. In fact, I'll see if I can find that picture of the wall. We can abstract it, and I'll see if I can put it here.
Yes.
And that third colleague that we are talking about, his name is Nitin. He's also coming on this podcast maybe in a week or two. So we'll link the dots together.
Yes.
That's where all of this has started from. When we were doing those kind of things in 2016, 17, 18, right? Did you ever imagine that 5 years later, I would be hosting a podcast and I would invite you and we would talk, and potentially people in multiple countries would listen to this story? What's your thought about that?
I think I never thought so. And this is a great place to be.
Yeah.
So I never thought that we would be working in different organizations, and then you will host a podcast, and I would be invited to do that. 7 years, it's a long time if you look that way, or it is a very short time in the whole journey. But this is a fantastic feeling. I would say today, doing a podcast with you, Savinder.
The reason I brought up that question is that what I'm trying to convey through that is the relationships that you build along the way which matter. Because today you and me work in different organizations, but we've stayed in contact over the years, and not just about work related stuff, but we've discussed a lot of things which has helped both of us, right? So build relationships when you find the right people and stick with that, right? So a lot of people talk to you and me both who have left our organizations and are working all across the world. So that's what I'm trying to highlight here, the importance of relationship. And the second thing is having a big vision. I remember those conference rooms in Zensar, that small room that we used to occupy, and Ravi and me used to spend hours together locked in that room, discussing strategies on how to approach this customer, or if some meeting didn't go well, what went wrong, what could we have done different. Or Ravi would come up and say, hey, I listened to this guy on YouTube, or I read about this article, let's see how we can incorporate this in our next assignment. So I think those kind of things are very, very important if you want to rapidly scale up in your career, to start building a think tank. So Ravi, there's another angle to consulting which not a lot of people who have not done this, they know about, right? I want to bring that up. So for context, let's say you travel to another country to do a consulting assignment, and sometimes you have 2 3 4 people with you, which is fine, but majority of the times as a consultant at that level you would travel alone, which means you are in a customer situation, a lot of time a hostile situation where people don't want you to be there, they are not happy that you're here, yet you have to make your way in and show success and do it in a week or 2 weeks, right? So, and you do all of that, and then you come back to your hotel room and you're having dinner alone, and there's something happening back home with your family, with your wife, kids are having a day which you've missed, all that is going on, and then the next day you have to go and put on a show again. So Ravi, talk to that about that mentality of what it takes to operate at that level, especially the mindset. How do you build that, and how do you protect it? How do you go on?
Okay. So we both would agree that there is a very challenging role. Being in DevOps is a very challenging role because DevOps is a very complex ecosystem, I would put that way. Now, it's not only about tools and technologies. If we look at tools, there may be hundreds of tools in the market, and you can't be expert of each of the tools. At the same time, it's not about doing DevOps for just Java and .NET. That is a least of the problem.
Yeah.
I would say one fine day in the morning, somebody would call you and ask you, okay, we have a legacy system which is built in the 80s and they need a DevOps solution for that. Can you work on the solution? Or there is a ERP system or whatnot. So technology is one part of the problem. But overall, since it's horizontal, it cuts across the SDLC, and it is directly a component which impacts or affects the business, I would say. If it is in place or it not in place in different ways. So it is a very, the role is very demanding. So you are always on your toes. Different people from different streams and levels would expect a lot of things from you, and there would be many escalations and many calls, war rooms, whatnot, and you are at the center of all that because you are a DevOps or a platform team, and everybody thinks that okay, you have a wand and magical wand and you can just fix their problems, and seldom it is that the case. It is the case. So I think, as we spoke earlier, you need to empathize with them. You need to understand their problem. It may not be a problem which you can help with, or it may not be a problem which falls under your area as well. But listening to them, showing that empathy, giving an ear to them helps. And then you go back and really see whether you are going to, or you will be in a position to help, because does it fall under your area, and then you work on that and fix it. So to do that, you need to be, I think that is where the calmness comes in, because the way I look at it is, for example, when I go to bed, I tell myself that okay, it was a great day and there will be a great day tomorrow. So I do meditation. In the morning, I go for a walk. I walk for 5 kilometers a day. I come back, I take a shower, cold water shower for 15-20 minutes. It clears off all the anxieties you have. And also learning semi-classical music these days, singing also, and that also is a big stress buster, and it keeps you away from the all that noise and challenges. It soothes your mind and brings you back with that energy, and it revitalizes you. And that is how I keep going. And what whatever happens, I tell myself that all is well, because ultimately it is business where you need to deliver at the end of the day, and you put all those efforts to deliver. As long as you are doing and you are truthful to yourself, I think you don't have to worry. There will be situations, there will be politics, there will be everything, because after all, it's all people problem and not technology problem, I would say.
Yeah.
And so it is just, you have to see that you are healthy mentally and physically. You are keeping focus on those aspects, and I think that's enough to get you going.
Yeah. Very, very beautifully put. And I like the way that you've explained your couple of things which help you maintain sanity. Right now,
Yes.
whatever works for anybody who's listening this podcast, that's fine. I can't do cold showers, so that is not me. I tried, but no, that doesn't work for me. But whatever works for you, but you have to
Yes.
experiment and figure out, what works for you. Cooking is my therapy, so I most of the times I make dinner at home together with my wife, so that's part of my calming thing. So whatever works. And I was listening to a podcast by Simon Sinek, and I've taken some of it from him and then some of it is my thought, but here's a formula for success. It is energy into competence raised to the power empathy. What it means is, energy is the enthusiasm, the passion that you bring in, right? That multiplied by competence, your technology competence. So both are required. But if you want a career which is taking you to different leagues, then that exponential factor is what, Ravi, you've been talking about, which is empathy.
Correct.
So I think that's very beautifully explained.
Yes.
So now let's
just to add to
Yeah, sure.
Just to add to this question again a bit more. Uh, there will be problems, and you don't have to always carried away by that, because and another thing is, people will be unhappy. You have to accept that.
Yeah.
It's not your duty to make everyone happy.
Yes.
You just have to deliver, and they will be happy at a given point in time.
Yeah.
People in the ecosystem will have their own challenges, and they want to bring that and vent out that, get someone to what you call target someone. It may not be what you call intended. It is, most of the time it is unintended, because everyone is going through that pressure.
Yeah.
So you have to ensure that you are not part of that game, and you are not taking up that pressure.
Correct.
You are saving your health and mental peace. That is your priority, and that will keep you going. Yeah, so I just wanted to add that.
No, yeah, very relevant. And I remember one of our bosses, Prasad Deshpande, whom we have both had the absolute pleasure to work with. He always used to tell us that if you are doing a consulting assignment and nobody is pissed off with you, you've not done a good job. Because you've not dug deep enough, you've not uncovered the real problem. Because if you have, there has to be one or two unhappy people, because they don't like to be ruffled. So yeah, I completely agree with you. So now, let's tone this conversation down a little bit. Let's lighten it up, and let's go to people who are maybe 2, 3, 5 years experience, right? And I know that you've taken a lot of interviews as well. So do you have any observations of people in the age group, in the 2 to 5, 7 years experience, who are already either in DevOps or wanting to get into DevOps? What are you seeing as a general trend? Now, I'm not talking a specific observation, but some general trends that you've seen in the last 1 or 2 years that, if you can highlight, then somebody who's listening to it can see if they relate to it or not, if they can identify something that they can correct. Our goal is to share our experience and see this is what in general we have seen, may or may not apply to somebody who's listening. But any feedback?
Okay. So basically, technology is the first thing for people who are just entering into DevOps, and they need to be self-aware of what they are doing in their day-to-day job as part of their day-to-day job.
What do you mean? Break it down. What does it mean to be self-aware?
If you remember, in 2016, I think we needed a DevOps consultant,
Uh-huh.
and we interviewed 30 odd people,
Yes.
and then finally selected one.
Yeah.
So I think the rejection rate is too high because people are not self-aware. Let me put it in the context here.
Yeah.
Generally, people will come to you and then they start telling you that okay, they did Docker, they did Kubernetes, they did OpenShift, everything.
Yeah.
But generally, they will not be able to tell what is the SDLC, what happens when I check in a code, what, for example, if there is a SonarQube they are using, how it is configured. So what kind of issues are captured in SonarQube? So a simple question: what is the base image size? People may not know that. So if
You're talking about a Docker image here.
yes, yes.
Yeah. Just for context. Yeah. Yeah.
So what happens is, if you're working for 8 hours a day for last maybe a year or so or 2 years, and if you cannot come out with all these smaller things, then you're not aware of what you are doing. So you should be very much aware of day-to-day activities, the minute things, because that gives us the impression that okay, you know things. I can read and learn Docker or Kubernetes on Udemy or somewhere else, and I can crack an interview. That is not the question. It is the experience which matters, because every day you are not implementing Docker and Kubernetes. You have to resolve very basic problems in the customer ecosystem, and unless you have that, what do you call that, that kind of a vision,
Acumen. Yeah.
then
Yeah.
you won't be able to help.
Hmm.
You can say
So-
okay, you can write a Docker file, but at the end of the day, writing a Docker file is not the solution. It is to fix the customer problem.
Correct. So, how does one develop that acumen? Of looking at the finer details, understanding the broader picture of what I'm doing, going into depth of what I'm doing. How do you build that up? Because you don't learn that from a Udemy class. How do you pick it up? What are the nuances? What are the 2-3 things that if I want to build that, and if I'm listening to this podcast, I say, yes, this makes sense. But what next? What do I do now?
So, as I said, technology comes first.
Mm-hmm.
You should understand the technology.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for example, suppose you are implementing Jenkins and Ansible.
Okay.
You need to understand what the Groovy script is. You need to understand how efficiently it can be written.
Mm-hmm.
You need to understand how Jenkins configuration works and what are things are there to configure. At least 20% you should know on day one. Then eventually you learn that. You should know, for example, if Ansible, you should know how to write a YAML file, how efficiently it can be written. These are very technical aspects. But then to climb higher, I would say that you need to understand whatever you are doing or whatever others are doing in your team, how efficiently something can be delivered. For example, we had 50 odd Jenkins pipelines. Now, that is not the best way to maintain that. Every time there is a problem, you will go to the specific pipeline, try to troubleshoot, fix it. So the better way is to think that how this can be improvised. What kind of improvements can be brought into this? Now, having that thought process or developing that thought process is very important. You have to slowly build that, and you have to look at smaller things. You don't have to, as I said, you don't have to always go into keywords like Jenkins or Docker and Kubernetes and AWS. If you simply write a beautiful script to fix something, automate something, it might be a 5-line script that is still going to help you. And I think as a developer or as a DevOps engineer, you need to see what all can be automated.
Mm-hmm.
So automating wherever possible is the key, and that will give you the what you call the acumen to get into that space and then learn bigger things. So you start small rather than going into complex things, and see whatever you are doing in a day, how it is helping the business. Whether this automation has improved the developer's time or testing team's time or even for DevOps team's time, is it helping in some way? Or there is a utility which you developed, it is being used once in a year, it's not going to help you because you spent 25 or 30 odd hours to build that. Now it will be used only once in a year, it's not going to help you. Whenever there is a repeatable activity which people are doing in a mundane manual way, that if you automate, I think will solve the problem, help the business. And that is something you need to keep learning, keep the ears open, eyes open, and keep learning.
Sure. So I think you brought out some incredible points in this. So what you're saying is that if you can put a general guideline, creating a CI/CD pipeline is really the first step in automation.
Yes.
That's the bare minimum. You got to know how to write that stuff and write it well. But that's where your thinking process should start. Okay, I've done this part. What next? How does it provide value? What is the real significance of this? And is it even usable? Is it scalable? Is it delivering value? What else can I do? Right? So always that question of what next and is it providing value?
Just to add to that, Savinder,
Mm-hmm.
I think, as you rightly said, CI/CD is just a starting point.
Yeah.
But generally, people think that DevOps is CI/CD.
Yes.
That is not the case. DevOps is everything, maybe on top of the hardware or OS. Whatever softwares you are installing, you need to upgrade, you need to patch the networking, the firewalls, the infrastructure. Everything comes under DevOps. It's not only building a CI/CD pipeline. At the end of the day, the pipeline and the applications which are productionized, you need to observe, you need to monitor them. You need to ensure that before a problem occurs, are you able to self-heal and fix those? Analyzing the logs and bringing the observability quotient, all these come under DevOps. And now we are moving to whatnot. For example, the data ops and ML ops, XOps. XOps is a future vision, but since chat ops is there, who knows? XOps may be the reality tomorrow.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, why not? Okay, so let's talk about somebody who's just starting out in the DevOps area, right? What would your advice be for somebody who's just venturing into this area? Maybe he or she has cracked the DevOps engineer interview and they're in the first month, 2 months of their career. What are the 2 or 3 things that you can tell them so that if they adopt that, they could have a high-flying career?
I think I partly answered this question, Savinder.
Yeah.
While technology quotient is key, whatever the tools they are using, they need to know throughout. The application they are supporting, they should know better. The infrastructure on which the applications are being run or the tools are being installed, they should know the end-to-end know-how. That is first thing, having the technology quotient. It is very important. In addition to that, they have to have attitude and aptitude. They have to have a right attitude towards solving problems. I think you need to define your goals. Now, since you have just arrived at the professional career, you may not know what goals and all, but you have to define some 6 monthly or yearly or 2 yearly goals, smaller goals. And you have to tell yourself that daily you will learn something which will help to achieve that goal eventually.
Yeah.
So attitude towards fixing problems, solving problems, as we spoke, having showing empathy, showing that compassion to colleagues, to other people in the ecosystem, try to help them in whatever way is very important. Because it is an outreaching role. It's not about a developer who is just sitting at his desk and coding something and delivering. It is much more than that.
Yeah.
You may have hundreds of developers coming to you and asking for different kind of help, sharing different problems. There may be DevOps problems, there may be code problems, there may be infrastructure problems. But then first you have to listen before commenting or before saying no.
Giving the solution, yeah.
Yes, first you have to listen. You have to try to understand, go deeper, create some notes out of it, because it may help you create some utility which will help you to go further. So, technology quotient, attitude, and aptitude are must for any DevOps engineer, I would say.
I think we can talk for another 4-5 hours, but in the interest of time, let's wrap it up. So, Ravi, phenomenal career, almost about 2 decades in this DevOps thing now. Yeah. So, 2 decades in DevOps, worked across multiple continents. You've worked with some really top C-level executive in large enterprises. Any regrets? And what would you do different if you were to do it all over again?
I think there are no regrets because I wanted to be closer to technology, and I got that opportunity. I got into DevOps eventually and started understanding technology, creating solutions, delivering them. It also gave me many opportunities to travel the world, to meet some of the finest tech, non-tech people, whether in technology or in leadership roles. Have a great bonding with those people still, and so these are key things which I have earned as part of this role. So there are no regrets, so to say. But if I want to go back and redo it, I would say that when I joined DevOps, I immediately went into consulting. So initially I did the work on COE creation, that is the practice creation, and creating the assessment frameworks, the architectures, etc. And then directly jumped into consulting. But I think at that time, I did not have enough experience on the ground to talk to the customers, because without the hands-on experience, on the ground experience, I was trying to understand their problems and providing solutions. While I did the job, I did a fantastic job, I would say. But still, I think if I would have got that initial 6 months or a year doing pure technical stuff in DevOps, that would have really helped me to accelerate further.
Yeah, but you were quick to fix that also, right? You did that.
Yes, definitely. But I think that is where my suggestion to be consultants in DevOps area to have the hands-on experience, because it is very important. Just to give an example, I was leading a large enterprise implementation in one of the organizations in UK, and while I was doing that, one of my key DevOps specialists left. I backfilled him, and the backfill also left in next 3 months. And it was difficult and challenging that time to get someone skilled to work on this project. So eventually, what I did is I told my UK manager that okay, let me fix this problem myself, and then I learned the couple of scriptings and the tool itself and delivered myself because it was required. It was the demand of the time, demand of that moment, and another uh, advice could be to build your team and hold on to them because DevOps people are rare to find. Good
Yes.
DevOps people are rare to find. So make sure you have your own team and you nourish them and you keep them with you. I think that should help.
Yep, perfect. So, Ravi, thank you so much for doing this. We've tried to condense what we have learned working together and across industries across the last about 7-8 years. We have tried very hard to condense it into under an hour, right? And hopefully people will be able to relate to some or the other aspects of this. But this is our small collective attempt to give back to the DevOps community, which has served us, both of us, so well. And we have been able to achieve that little bit of success that we have today. I think we owe it to give it back to the community and to be able to, spread whatever little we have gained over the years. And hopefully this will make sense to people. So, Ravi, thank you so much for doing that. And any last thoughts?
I should thank you for this great opportunity, and I think we have made a great use of this time and given some back to the day of society, I would say, and
Yeah.
people will learn, as you said, and so thanks for that. I'm very
Thanks,
happy.
Ravi. Thank you. See you.
Thanks. Bye.